Well, it's time to move on to the profile boards.
Train, 16 coaches long.
Now you see why. First thing it says is to cut these access panels. And I know somebody else has had problems with these things being up and down. So what I'm saying is these, the big flat area on the top or bottom and over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to prevent that from happening by, I'm going to go ahead and trim out all the other pieces first. All these pieces, I'm going to trim them out and I'm going to put it together, and then I'll cut the access holes. So I'm going to do it a little bit backwards, but I'll still get it done. Well, this thing just grew in size pretty major. It got big. What I did was I went ahead and cut all of the profile boards, and I wanted to go ahead and piece this because it's like a puzzle. So I'm going to piece it all together and make sure I get all my access panels and see which access panels I didn't need or want or wanted to change where they're at. So I went ahead and here's the left side. You have a L2 and the L4. The L1 and the L3 are just plain sheets, and they left a spot for you to pick your own route to cut. It's just got a little dotted line so you can just pick your own route. L5 sets on top of that. Going to the back, you got a B4, a B6, and a B7, and a B3, and a B5, the B2, and that's where the water supposedly comes out, or the dry creek bed, but it would be water for me, B1. And then the other side over here, I'm not really concerned about. Yeah, those are cut, those are easy compared to these other ones. And when I marked my access panel for one B3 and looking over here, it really doesn't, because of my change that I did, that's not going to be helpful at all. So I'm possibly not going to cut the panel in B3 because B4 is 14 inches wide from here to here, and I can reach my arm all the way from this 14-inch mark. I can reach my arm almost all the way into that tunnel there, and I can reach all the way across there. So I think I'm just going to put the access panel for L1 here. It's an access panel that cuts in here, and I'll put one into B3. Other than that, I'm glad I put this thing together first, because you know, it just looking at it on paper is one thing, but you got to get all these things where they'll grab and hold together. Okay, and boy, this thing did grow. Boy, this thing did grow. Okay, we're gonna get to the next step here of well, we'll have to read and find out what it is. Okay, I've now that I've verified all these pieces by putting them actually on the layout, L1, the one I marked L1, my 8x6 is in there. That's 8 inches from both sides, 2 inches from the bottom. And this is how that one goes in case you're wondering, the big flat is at the top. And then the B4, which is 3 inches from the right, 2.5 inches from the left, 2 inches from the bottom, makes 18.5 by 6. It's actually the flat bottom, like that. And these things will fit together like this, verified. Then they had 4 of these connectors here, and it said just half them to make 3x4s. I colorized that one with little Folgers. Same here. So I'll get all these things cut up, and we'll go ahead and put this back together. Well, I've got the sideboards all lined up. The instructions say to do the front first, F1, F2, F3, and F4. Get them lined up, leaving a 1/2 inch critical on both sides, and it's not a big deal if your table's 4 by 8. It works out pretty good. Maybe just a little bit off, but I'm not gonna leave this front on. I'm gonna use it as a guide to get the sides done, and then I'm gonna take it off because this thing's awful delicate. With my grandson, he'll have that thing ripped down. I need one area that I can lean over and work on. So I'm gonna glue the side and the back and the side on, and then I'm gonna work from this direction. So I'm gonna leave this front area off now. So I'm gonna get that glued on. All these pieces that we cut here, I'm gonna have to trim that and that and that off. They do touch the ground down there, so I will be able to glue that and give it a little bit more stability, but still this stuff is kind of, if you lean on it, it's gonna break. All the sides were figured out. There's where I'm gonna have to cut out. I just kind of, it says just kind of draw you a line on there. This piece is rather delicate, but at least that piece, you can use one of your pieces in four-way cover the 4 panels. So I can leave that one on, I think. I'm not gonna cut my hole and everything into this door. It says a 1 by 1 inch. I'm not gonna do that yet. I'm gonna wait until I stabilize the whole sides. Same thing with the back panel. They're all cut in already. They're cut. And on the back, I put this block where it's covering three of the panels. And what I did was I supplemented down there with an extra one. I supplemented down there with the extra ones and one up here. I couldn't supplement that one over there below the coffee stain one because it would be right where you'd see at the track, and I'm not interested in that. I'll just glue that really well, tight butt that. I may end up doing some more tunnel work in there once it's all complete. And one other thing, you notice the top is not on. That thing is way too delicate. It's way too delicate to keep up here the whole time. And I don't want it broke. So it's way too delicate. I'm gonna wait to the last minute to do anything. Also, it's one of those ones that has the big flat end here and the big flat end here. So they just set together. I guess it just glues together. But none of these blocks, and don't expect that you're gonna do it, save yourself a little time. You can cut these all you want. They're not gonna work to put your top one on. It's just not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. When you put those two big flat sides together, it leaves too much of a butt right there, and none of them match up. So this would have to be a glue. So I'm just gonna take this and put it to the side where it's safe, where I can't damage it. And I'll work this area. So I've got all these pieces in. Now it's time to do some gluing. I'll do some gluing, and I'll show you the result when I get done. One more thing that I looked at before I started this cutting project is how much of this tunnel tops that I had left. I've only got, I may have used too much somewhere else, but I've only got 2 sheets 1/4 inch, and it says to put 1/4 inch up there in the corner and then one beside it and then use the scraps here. I don't have enough. So I'm gonna have to use one of my 1/2 inches, and that only leaves me 3 of those left. Hopefully I'll be fine there. But since I have to use 1/2 inch, I am gonna put it all the way against the corner over there, and it does fit onto the shelf and it doesn't interfere with anything really. So I'll use the 1/2 inch on this heavier area and the 1/4 inches over top of this other stuff.
ocean to the wild Pacific shore. From the queen of flowing mountains to the south bells by the moor. She's a mighty tall and handsome, she's known quite well by all. It's a modern combination called the Wabash Cannonball. She came down to Birmingham one cold December day. As she pulled into the station, you could hear all the people say, there's a girl from Tennessee, she's long and she's tall. She came down to Birmingham on the Wabash Cannonball. Our eastern states are dandy, so the people always say. From New York to St. Louis and Chicago, by the way. From the hills of Minnesota where the rippling waters fall. No chance
Okay, I got all the
of
gluing
taking
done
on the Wabash
on the
Cannonball.
side,
Now
the
here's
back,
Betty Claxton,
and the right side.
forever stand.
I did not glue them down to the table because I've left this front loose. I'm going to use it like it says as a guide template to make sure the rest of it's lined up. Then I'm going to glue the left side, rear, and the back down. All these are glued. All of the connectors are glued. Everything's glued. This thing sure did rigid up a lot. Everything went well. One thing, now being a newbie, let me show you one thing that I did that I thought was pretty neat. I actually injected where I put the tip of this thing up into the here and squeezed it as I went through every one of the things, so I know it's injected in between the two. So anyway, all that's done. Okay, all my gluing is done around the side except for this front. Like I said, I'm gonna take this front off. It's not glued at all. And I'm gonna preserve it somewhere safe. And the wind just blew it. That way I can still work over this edge and not break that off, because it will break off. Okay. We're all done. The sides are looking really good. And they're glued down. This thing is sturdy. This thing is sturdy. Now I'm gonna go around here and pull all the pins. Check and see, and I'll let you see how it worked out. It's glued down pretty good. I used that injection method again, and it gets it well up in between. It gets it well up in between the styrofoam pieces, and it's about as sturdy as that styrofoam's going to get. Once we put a little structure inside, it ought to stiffen it up a little bit more. Okay, I think what I'm going to do now, I think next in the thing is make some 1/2-inch pieces for the corners, and I've only got to make 2 of them really. Okay, I've made my 1/2-inch by 1/2-inch squares for these corners. Put me some glue in here. I'm just going to put a little bit to tack it. Couple of tacks. Looks pretty good. Okay, you get the idea. Now I've already made one for that corner. I'll go ahead and glue it in. The two front ones, I just made the pieces and just pinned them to the front over there. Okay, now back to these access panels. It's said to do a 1 inch by 1 inch square. You can do that if you want to, or you can do, just get a drill bit about the size of my finger, and it fits in there just fine. I'd rather have something round than square. Also, what I'm going to do is, if you take a look at this, it's kind of beveled outward. I'm going to trim those down just a little bit, bevel it where this panel goes in and out a little easier than it does. And I use my trusty little knife there to do that. I'll show you the results. Well, that works a lot better, beveling those things a little bit. It comes out. I may take a little bit more off from it, but being able to just stick your finger in, that works fine. And you recognize that I did not put this other panel in here. I only put this one access panel here and this one here. Now I need to drill the hole and bevel that one. Then we'll get on to the next step.